Be prepared for something new. Everyone is different. So are you. Stay straight. No masquerades. Do things that you'll remember. You can push too far, but stay fair. Stay on track. Give it your all. Get to the bottom of things. Decide what's right. Don't believe in what the others do. Find it out for yourself. Be close to it all. Bring your heart along. Follow your goals. Reach for the stars. Turn the weekend into the loudest party of your life. Are you prepared?
Hello everyone and welcome from Zandvoort. It's the 6th race weekend of the DTM season 2017 and we're thrilled to be here. It's very windy, but it's a beautiful racetrack, old school as the drivers call it, and it's carved right into the dunes and it's very tricky to overtake. But one man who certainly knows how to overtake here and how to do well is Mattias Ekström. You won here 4 times before. At the moment you're leader of the championship. Today you're only coming from P10, but you certainly know how to go to the front, so how are you going to do it?
Yeah, we will try, and it's very difficult. I mean, the BMWs are very fast, so I think it will be a challenging race. And now they're at the front, so they can decide which strategy they want to go, and everybody else will respond. So let's see.
All right, well, best of luck. Thank you very much. And before we get started here, let's have a look back at Moscow.
Now, who would have thought this prior to the season? At Moscow, René Rast put things straight and became the DTM's half-time champion as a rookie. In the decisive first race, the Audi driver scored an undisputed lights-to-flag win.
Today again, the win, with a championship lead is just a great moment.
Behind Rast, Mike Rockenfeller provided the story of the first race. After his horrific crash at the Norris Ring, the Audi driver used his right foot to brake throughout the race and sensationally finished second.
Mike is impressive with his broken foot on the second place. Is a really fantastic result for us.
On day 2, spectators in Moscow got to see another thrilling race. Maro Engel scored the biggest success of his DTM career. The 31-year-old benefited from an early safety car intervention. His luck, he had already come in for his tyre change. Thus, the Mercedes driver scored his maiden DTM win in his 52nd race.
You know, we've had some solid, strong races finishing in the points, but obviously today winning the race tops everything.
This weekend, 3rd place was the best result for BMW. On Saturday, defending champion Marco Wittmann managed to finish on the podium. On Sunday, the 2012 champion Bruno SPENGLER secured the 15 points after a turbulent final part of the race.
We can go back home with our heads high because we fought really well and we did a great job.
Mattias Ekström headed home from Russia as the leader in the drivers' standings. The ex-champion only finished 8th on Saturday, but on Sunday, a strong performance saw him finish 2nd. Therefore, he is the one everybody is after at Zandvoort.
And now I'm here with Timo GLOCK, the pole setter. Very interesting qualifying, actually. All of a sudden, the rain started. It almost seems like everybody else was not ready for it, but you guys were?
Yeah, honestly, we were not ready for the rain. I mean, we didn't know. I mean, I didn't know until I was back in the pits where my engineer told me it's going to be possible that there is a shower coming, and at the end was quite a heavy one, which at the end, you know, blocked us for going out again and having a second run, which was good for me, you know. So I was very happy with that first lap, which I didn't expect after FP3. FP3 didn't look super great for me. I mean, the lap was clean as well, but I missed 6/10 to Marco, which is a lot. And when I saw the lap time, when I crossed start and finish, I was quite surprised. I said, okay, that's not so bad for maybe top 5. And at the end, it was enough for pole position.
And starting in pole and then having 3 BMWs behind you, I guess that gives you a confident feeling for the race.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it makes life easier, but we all know the Audi is very strong on the race, and they're going to push very hard. So René Rast is there, and he will give us a hard time for sure. So we need to make sure we stay in front.
All right, well, best of luck for the race. Thank you, Timo. Back to you.
Here comes the grid in full for you then ahead of race 1. Timo GLOCK, pole position. Augusto Farfus going from P2. Marco Wittmann and Maxime Martin lock out row 2. It's P3 and it's P4. René Rast and Loic Duval, a brilliant qualifying from Loic Duval. They're on the 3rd row of the grid. Then we find Tom Blomqvist and Gary Paffett going P7 and P8. Mike Rockenfeller and Mattias Ekström are P9 and P10. Then we find Paul de Resta and Robert Wickens, P11 and P12. Qualifying catching people out in qualifying, or the weather catching them out in qualifying, Maro Engel and Nico Muller going on the 7th row of the grid, and Jamie Green and Lucas Auer, P15 and P16. And bringing up the rear of the pack, we find Bruno Spengler celebrating his 150th DTM start, and alongside him is Eduardo Mortara as we take a look at this fantastic Zandvoort circuit, which is carved out of the sand dunes on the North Sea coast here in the Netherlands. Some 4.3 kilometers, this circuit, as it twists and turns its way through the dunes. There are 4 left-handers and 9 right-handers. We look at the Robert Wickens car going from P12 in the grid. Robert Wickens, at one point, we thought he would challenge for the championship potentially this year. Finds himself down in P11 on the championship chart at the moment. Jens Marquardt is the head of BMW Motorsport with Verena now.
Yes, I certainly am here with Jens Marquardt. Now, the weather here in Zandvoort really is very unpredictable, but in this case, it put you in mega positions. You've got 4 BMWs in the top. Were you surprised or not?
It was a bit like Nürburgring, yeah, where you normally have to be prepared for everything. Close to qualifying, we already saw there's some showers coming up, and we were discussing whether we should do a wake-up run or not, and then, oh yeah, we'll try, and we do. And it was really lucky, but it hit us perfectly. And we just did our best laps at the very end, and then the rain came, and that obviously prevented everybody else from going quicker. So we were lucky, but I think also the guys did a great job in getting that first run really properly together, and especially Timo, mega lap. And yeah, now we have an hour of racing, so a good starting position, but still an hour to fight and defend and keep it. And we'll see where we are at the end, but I think the start is not too bad. So just have to see what kind of strategies as well with the new asphalt and everything. So going to be a tough one.
All right, well, best of luck, Jens Marquardt. Thank you very much. And now back to you.
Thanks very much, Verena. Fair point made by Jens Marquardt. They really lucked in qualifying. Alongside me is motorsport journalist Leo Gorman. BMW really took benefit from that sudden rain shower because, as Jens Marquardt had said, they'd banked sensible laps early on.
Absolutely, and actually something we mentioned in qualifying this morning, it's important to get that really good first set of runs in, get a good time on the board just in case something does happen. And it was actually only we saw the clouds coming over the horizon. Didn't think they were going to drop down as soon as they did, but the moment you saw the wind come in and the rain come in,
yes.
that downpour was coming and effectively set the grid with 8 minutes to go.
You called it exactly right. I thought that we wouldn't be affected by the rain, but we were, and probably more dramatically than we expected. As we look at Loic Duval, who's had a supreme qualifying. He goes from P6 on the grid. It was interesting reading an article where Dieter Gas was interviewed and said that Loic Duval has probably suffered from trying almost too hard. Of course, he's been a winner in every category of racing he has ever raced in, and he's come into DTM, and whilst not necessarily suggesting that he expected to be a winner straight away, he certainly thought he would be higher up in the order than he has been, and therefore has pushed so very, very hard. This rookie, though, René Rast, he goes from P5 on the grid and is P2 in the championship at the moment. So René Rast, and bear in mind he's P2 in the championship by only a point because Mattias Ekström is on 113 points, René Rast is on 112. Maxime Martin then goes from P4 on the grid. Had a number of P2 places. What can Maxime Martin do here in Zandvoort? It's an incredible circuit, and it, as Verena has suggested, is called an old school circuit. The reason being, there are no long tarmac runoff areas. There are no areas, therefore, of safety. If you go offline, if you go off track, Lee, it can punish you, this circuit.
Absolutely. We saw the Formula 3 race this morning. There was an incident in the first corner, and one of the drivers, David Beckman, went off into the gravel trap, and his car was flipped over. And thankfully, David was absolutely fine, but it was race over immediately for the young man, whereas a lot of modern circuits, you go off, and you maybe lose a little bit of time, but generally you're quite safe. Here, if you make a mistake, you're in trouble.
As I say, you get punished for it. The topography is incredible because the circuit really is carved out of those dunes that you saw from that fantastic heli shot. Going from P3 on the grid is Marco WITTMANN. Of course, he is two-time DTM champion and current DTM champion. He's P7 in the points on a relatively lowly 72 points, but just things haven't gone his way necessarily this year. What can he do from his position on the grid? And Augusto Farfus at last with a decent qualifying, showing his real talent. He goes from P2. Let's hear from the head of Audi Motorsport now. Dieter Gas is alongside Verena.
He certainly is. Now, from your top championship contenders, only René Rast is in a pretty good position, being P5. Were you a bit surprised by the rain?
Yes and no. We did have a forecast of a chance of or a risk of rain. But if you have been looking out in the sky, it didn't seem to be that imminent. Then the risk was increasing. We tried to go out, but it's just a minute or two too late in order to be able to do something. But okay, things like that happen. We would have liked to be a bit further up the grid, for sure. But still, René is in a very good position. We're now here in Zandvoort. Even with a new tarmac, it's going to be a lot about race consistency. That's normally one of our strongest points. So I hope we can move up a little bit.
Well, best of luck. Thank you very much, Dieter Gas. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Verena. Dieter Gas there making the point, Lee. New tarmac here at Zandvoort, and the tarmac over the last 24-hour period has been washed a couple of times, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It's a very, very green circuit here. So we have had running today. We had a lot of running in other categories yesterday. But that rubber that was down has very much been washed away, so the grip is not necessarily going to be there. As we see the point standings currently at the moment, and you mentioned Rast, 1 point behind Eki, who's not won a race yet this year.
But that's the beauty of the DTM, isn't it? The consistent point scoring of this man means that
he's a very serious man, by the way.
Yes, he is. A great bit of camera art there. That was really interesting, wasn't it?
But we see in third place Auer there as well. Couple of wins, but also a couple of non-scores.
Let me interrupt you because Verena has got hold of the head of Mercedes Motorsport, Uli Fritz.
Yes, Uli Fritz, your best championship contender, Lukas Auer, is only in P16. What was he struggling with?
I think it's even further down there, but however it is, he's just struggled with overall grip and overall pace. He didn't get the tire heated up properly. Yeah, and then it's difficult in DTM if you're missing a few seconds. And today we didn't get a second shot and a second chance because the rain started. So yeah, that's it, unfortunately.
Now it's a first race weekend ever since Mercedes-Benz said that they're quitting the DTM end of next year. A big surprise for all of us. Honestly, were you shocked?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's sad on the one hand, but on the other hand, you have to accept the decision. And I think I can find good reasons for the decision. And yeah, we have to deal with it. But the most important thing is we will fight for 2 more championships here, and today is the first race to win 2 more championships.
Right, well, thank you very much. Best of luck, Uli Fritz, and now let's get racing. So back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Verena. Yes, as the engines roar into life, then formation lap not far away, and Uli Fritz then going back to his grid, or his position in the pit boxes where they will watch the start of the race as the big crowd here in Zandvoort, as is always the case for DTM, which, of course, whatever the weather, and the sunshine is very welcome here on the coast. Now, the DTM always provides great spectacle and great entertainment, though for Lucas Auer, a lot of work for him to do from P16.
The disappointing thing for Lucas for qualifying this morning, it wasn't just one area of the circuit where he actually lost a bit of time. He was losing chunks in every area around the circuit. It was a second gap to pole that was lost in all corners and all areas. It's a tough one for the Mercedes man.
Well, let's see what he can do, and the adjustments will have been made, of course, ahead of the race. As the cars roar away, then it is DTM race 11. From here, we go off to the Nürburgring, the Red Bull Ring and Hockenheim for the glittering grand finale in the middle of October. But for now, we have 2 races to come here at Zandvoort. The first one of those is about to get underway. Of course, the 55-minute race duration with the mandatory pit stop, which can, though, be taken at any point in the race by the drivers now. There's no mandated pit stop window.
Expect to see some early stops, Dave. For some of the guys who are unexpectedly down towards the rear of the grid, get an early stop out of the way, get into clear traffic, drive for the first part of the rest of the race on a new set of tyres.
You do lots and lots of technical writing. Is the new tarmac going to help the longevity of the tyres and therefore benefit those that do early stop?
It will help the tyres to a certain degree. What would actually detract from them somewhat is the fact that the circuit is so green. They're going to be sliding around an awful lot more. They're not going to have the grip they'd normally have. And plus, as well, as you can see on the screen there, lots of gravel runoff areas where it's very sandy here. Yes. The wind is picked up quite a lot, and that's actually dropping some sand across layers of the circuit. And that too is actually going to make the tyres slide a little bit more as the drivers struggle a little bit for grip.
Uli Fritz then does return to the garage ahead of the start of race 1. Drivers' Championship, as you can see, couldn't be closer at the top between Mattias Ekström and René West. Both Audi drivers, of course, merely a point that splits them. P3 is Lucas Auer with lots of work to do from P16 on the grid. They make their way around the back of the paddock area, going through turns 12 and 13. Which is a real sweep that brings them back around to the start-finish straight. And there you can see them, the cars, as they slow down and approach their pit boxes. Timo GLOCK really lighting up the rear end, trying to drive some temperature into the tyres. Augusto Farfus doing exactly the same. The track temperature perhaps not as high as they would like it to be.
Okay. Slow. You have 1 meter. Stop. Okay.
Timo GLOCK.
Maximum brake pressure. Remember, 4 and 4 lights, idle, preload, blips, and the closing right now.
Being guided by his engineer as we go into the garages of BMW and now Audi as Dieter Gas looks on, and we await the start of this race here at Zandvoort. Augusto Farfus going from P2. He, of course, though, is on the inside, though, slightly further back than Timo GLOCK. Could he make a play for P1 going into turn number 1? We get the green flag from the marshal at the rear. Uli Fritz there in the Mercedes-Benz garage as the anticipation rises. Await the lights come on, so too does the engine note. Now, all eyes on the grid as they're released, and let's go racing. A brilliant start from Timo GLOCK. Augusto Farfus then stays in that P2 position. Keep an eye on Maxime Martin then. Around the first turn they go. Who's going to be brave and who's not? Because the inside of turn 1 becomes the outside of turn 2 as they make their way through behind the paddock now. And Augusto Farfus is relegated to P3 as Marco Wittmann makes his way up to P2. Loic Duval and René Rast. There's René Rast, who's made... just before I mention that, they're 2 abreast, and who is that?
That's a big off for... It's
Paffett, isn't it?
I think, yes, it is. He's lost it completely and gone clean. Oh, no, so it's Maro Engel, actually.
You're right, it is Maro Engel as he returns onto the track. And, of course, what he does, he brings out loads of gravel onto that track as well. You can see it all flying off the windscreen.
Right. Look, on the racing line.
The front splitter has acted like a shovel as he's gone through that gravel. Timo GLOCK, in the meantime, is problem-free out front. But look at this, there's 3-4 fighting at the back of that little gaggle because Augusto Farfus for company now has got René Rast. Loic Duval is coming under some pressure from Tom Blomqvist. We're on board with René Rast now as he chases down Augusto Farfus aheid.
I wonder if Farfus has some sort of problem, because he's been very slow in this first lap. He was slow off the grid. He was held Martin up in turn 1, and these drivers have dived into the pits already.
Mike Rockenfeller is one of those.
Blomqvist is the other. Farfus hasn't seemed to have any speed. He's got overtaken by Martin at some stage on his lap as well. Now really under pressure from Rast.
Let's go on board with René Rast now as he chases down the Augusto Farfus car in front of him. This is the battle going on for P4 as we see Mike Rockenfeller in the pit lane. Tom Blomqvist also in. New rules for DTM this year means just 2 engineers that can work on the car at any one time. And Tom Blomqvist gets past Mike Rockenfeller.
Now, the interesting thing to watch out for as the Rockenfeller and Blomqvist come out with their pit stops, it's not just the amount of time you lose in the pits, slowing down, getting your tyres changed, and then getting back up to speed. You tend to lose sometimes maybe 4 seconds in that first lap coming out of the pits, trying to get your tyres back up to temperature. There's no tyre warmers anymore.
Absolutely, and that's the reason behind that. Another one of the regulation changes this year are no tyre warmers are allowed. Now, René Rast is all over the back of Augusto Farfus, trying to find a way through. It's not the easiest track on which to overtake, that's for sure, but he is having a go at it. Gary Pappert is P7, Mattias Ekström P8, then it's Paul di Resta, and you can see the Paul di Resta car there being chased by Jamie Green, who was very, very quick in free practice 2 earlier on today. Expect great praise from the Jamie Green Audi.
And Farfus really is losing an awful lot of time. He's dropped something like 1.5 seconds on this lap alone, almost.
So he is going to be under real pressure, isn't he? Although René Rast is perhaps not close enough to do anything in turn 1 on this occasion, Loic Duval is another one under pressure from Gary Paffett.
Rast might need to get drastic to actually try and get Farfus, because as you said, it is a very difficult circuit, and he's very close to these the twisty section of the circuit, but that's not where you want to be quicker, as he tries to go around the outside in 3, doesn't quite make it there as Farfus pulls away again. But Rast is going to need to make that move quickly, because otherwise Farfus will just hold him and allow the top 3 to just go away.
Well, very much. So there you can see Farfus, Rast, and Loic Duval is a bit of a cork in a bottle now, because he's got Paffett, Ekström, di Resta, Green and Robert Wickens all behind him. We're on board with Mattias Ekström now, who's running in P8 at the moment and chasing down that Gary Paffett Mercedes-Benz ahead of him. You can see the Loic Duval all-green Audi, which, as I mentioned, is just a little bit of a cork in the bottle here.
Farfus was nearly 2 seconds a lap slower in that last lap alone. He's dropped a second in that first sector.
Critically, car number 77, Loic Duval, is going to get a 5-second pit stop penalty for a jump start. Ooh. So that is going to hamper him as René Rast continues to turn the wick up against Augusto Farfus. To be fair to Augusto Farfus, he's been stoic in defence here, and Rast cannot find a way around, and it is critically difficult to overtake here on the Zandvoort circuit. Now, I don't think he's close enough to line something up for turn number 1, or perhaps he is. There is confirmation of the pit stop penalty of 5 seconds for Loic Duval as Rast to the inside. Farfus goes to turn in, gives him racing room, and now comes back at him. So, Augusto Farfus coming back at him now. They're side by side once again, and or Augusto Farfus sticks his elbows out. So René Rast then tried to go through, was denied initially, then made it happen. I think he's lost one of the aeroflicks from the front of his car as well, in a little bit of contact between the two of them. So Augusto Farfus gets to breathe for at least another lap, Lee.
Rast uses DRS to try and make that move work, and it did work, but only for the moment. He went too far wide, and there we see Paffett and Duval going hammer and tong at it as well over 6th and 7th place. Rast is going to try again. He has to try again. He needs to make his move to get past the BMW in front of him.
So René Rast then continuing to chase down Augusto Farfus. In the meantime, Timo GLOCK up the road, Marco Wittmann up the road, Maxime Martin up the road in P1, 2 and 3.
Okay, we have Farfus P4 doing 1:32.8s, holding everyone up. The 3 leading BMWs are all in 1:30s. Blomqvist, Rockenfeller, who both in the pits, they're in the 1:30s as well. They're in clear air, they got fresh tyres.
Yes.
And this is where the advantage for them comes in, as everyone else is actually losing time. They are metaphorically kind of going up the order.
Yes, of course they are, but what they've got to do is those tyres have got to last until the end of the race. Now, all of these that we're watching at the moment, of course, have got to take their mandatory pit stop. Therefore, come the end of the race, they're going to be on fresher tyres as Mattias Ekström dives in. And diving to the inside was René Rast. He was denied. Augusto Farfus said, no way, you coming through here. And Nico Müller under some pressure as well. Although he's pushing Robert Wickens hard. Here comes Mattias Ekström in then. So he then is another one that has come into the pit stop for this mandatory tyre change, choosing a relatively early pit stop. Cold tyres, you can see how they spin up as he leaves the grid now. There are Tom Blomqvist and Mike Rockefeller leaving the pits, I should say, rather than the grid. Oh, and on cold tyres, Mattias Ekström is in the gravel.
But
he's got to keep his foot in here to try and snowplow that car out. He's going to do it, but there's going to be so much gravel on the exit there. Look at it. It's being laid down.
Absolutely mortified there for Mattias Ekström as the car just slid on. We saw that earlier this year with Paul di Resta. I think it was at Lausitzring as well when he went straight on after the first corner. But this is what I'm talking about. They've no grip.
But this man, Mattias Ekström, one of the most experienced DTM drivers out there. And, you know, it's an error.
I think he went off again. I think he's gone off for a second time.
Oh,
yes,
look at that. He spun it.
Well, how cold, unless he's spun in his own gravel,
That's possible. That's, do you know what? That's exactly, I reckon, what happened. Because you could see it being unloaded from the front spoiler, couldn't you? Look at that.
And this is going to make the track so dirty for everyone else. I mean, look, that is absolutely unfortunate for all the drivers who've not made this, who've not spun, because Eki has just come out of both gravel traps and basically thrown dirt and muck and everything else all over the circuit. And really, it's ruined his race to a degree. He's lost an awful lot of time there as Jamie Green comes into the pits. The Audi man making his stop.
So Green then on his way out. Now, of course, you're not going to see Mattias Ekström, who you would expect to be behind Tom Blomqvist, because, of course, he has spun. And whilst that was going on, of course, Mike Rockefeller has got past Tom Blomqvist, so Rocky showing good pace in that Audi, and bear in mind that he's one of those that chose that early stop. Here is the overtake in replay, through on the inside on Tom Blomqvist. It was a bold move, but it was a move that paid off, and not somewhere that you would expect to see an overtake, Lee.
Absolutely not. So again, there's a black and white flag for Augustus Farfus, who in defence against René Rast has the stewards have noted that he's changed his position too many times,
which you're not allowed to do.
Absolutely not. It's one of those rules. It's considered unsportsmanlike conduct, shall we say?
So Farfus is warning then. He has got to defend, of course, but he's got to defend in a legal way, and he's been shown the black and white flag. There it is. So René Rast now to the outside. Augusto Farfus makes the car quite wide. René Rast gets a little bit of a slingshot, but it's still not quite enough to get him alongside the Augusto Farfus car. In comes Lucas Auer then. He's the next of the drivers to come in. And it's not a quick time from Lucas Auer.
He's lost quite a lot there. But first Mercedes in this race to stop, so it'll be interesting to see what his pace is like once they get up to speed. As I do believe that's Jamie Green going by. It is indeed.
Jamie Green, of course, who came out. Now, Lucas Auer is going to be on cold tyres as well. You can see the car understeering through turn number 1. Those cold tyres, the tyre warmers banned from use for this season on. Maxime Martin is running in P3. P2 is Marco Wittmann, and up the road, here is our race leader, Timo GLOCK.
What we're seeing now at the front of the field with Glock, Wittmann and Martin is their times have dropped up significantly in the first 6 laps of this race. They're no longer in the 1 minute 30s, the mid to late 1 minute 30s. They're actually doing 1 minute 32.2 to 1 minute 32.4. So they've actually dropped off 1.5 seconds of pace. And even Farfus, Rast, Duval down below are now in the mid 1 minute 33. So we're actually seeing a big drop off in time in only the first 6 laps of this race. So you're right, actually, what you mentioned earlier on, as we got 2 more pits. That is
Marco Wittmann and Maxime Martin. So P2 and P3 come in, leaving Timo GLOCK, the race leader, out. That means that Augusto Farfus now, who's still defending from René Rast nominally, goes up to P2. Rast is P3. Duval is P4. Bear in mind, Duval has got a 5-second pit stop penalty to serve as well. Here comes Maxime Martin. Here comes Marco Wittmann.
He's going quicker. He's going quicker. Should I pit? I say out. I say out and see what he's doing.
So they are ahead of Mike Rockenfeller, and the consequence of this is Rockenfeller, of course, has been in earlier, so his tyres now will be up to speed. Therefore, potentially, Wittmann and Martin could fall prey to Mike Rockenfeller here.
Absolutely, but something you mentioned actually earlier on, which may very well come to fruition, if we're having such a drastic drop-off of tyres this early in the race, then it's possible that early stop for Blomqvist and Rockenfeller could come back to bite them quite severely.
Well, we'll see. I wonder if the drop-off is perhaps as a consequence of the track surface now not necessarily changing, but changing for the gravel that's been dumped all over the surface. That must have an effect.
It probably does, but I would actually probably say it's more down to the green nature with the overnight showers. It's taking away any kind of additional grip rubber. And of course, don't forget, we had a rain shower, what, 2 hours ago as well?
Yeah.
It again washed the all the rubber off the circuit. So
I think Rocky has missed out on the opportunity here to get close to Martin and Wittmann, because their tyres will be getting up to temperature now. As Timo GLOCK comes in, there he is. In the all-yellow BMW then, our race leader is in for his mandatory pit stop. This needs to be a good one for the RMG team. Not the fastest in the world, 7.5 seconds as Timo GLOCK makes his way back out again.
And Nico Muller is stopping just as GLOCK leaves.
So here comes GLOCK then. Now he's going to be on cold tyres. Be very, very careful around the turn one. Marco Wittmann there and Maxime Martin. Now, Marco Wittmann, whose tyres are now up to temperature, may have the opportunity, perhaps, to reel in Timo GLOCK and get past him. So, Marco Wittmann closes, gets ever closer to Timo GLOCK, who's having to feather that accelerator pedal around this circuit as he gently gets those tyres back up to temperature. There is Mike Rockenfeller.
Farfus now.
Here he comes. So can Wittmann get the overtake done on Timo GLOCK? He's right behind him now. Of course, two brand teammates. They both driving the BMW cars. Marco Wittmann, the current DTM champion, up against Timo GLOCK, then former Formula One star. So yellow flag in turn number 7. What's that all about? It's disappeared quite quickly.
Martin just there in P3 as well.
Do you know what? I think Marco has lost his opportunity here, because now GLOCK should have those tyres up to sufficient temperature, you would think.
Farfus and Paffett now have also pitted, bringing Rast into the lead of this race. It's interesting, though, to see how much, as you mentioned, Rockenfeller and Blomqvist have lost a bit of time, as Wittmann is going to stick his nose in there, but GLOCK kind of holds position.
And a little bit further back down the grid, you've got cars rejoining. And Jamie Green on the outside of Tom Blomqvist slingshots it all the way around the outside.
Very nice move there by Jamie Green. That's something you can do here if you're a bit brave. If the driver you're attacking is on the inside, you can hang it round the outside of the circuit and get a kind of slingshot as the exit of turn 1 shoots down towards turn 2.
It's almost banked, that turn 1, isn't it?
The topography of the circuit, it allows it to do that. It's not just a flat turn 1, it actually is very much banked to allow you to get a curvature, as it were. As we see,
this is Nico Muller and Lucas Auer.
Auer is going to try around the outside.
Whoa!
Candida circuit, and that's around turn 5, I believe.
Lifted the side of the car up, but Lucas Auer will add yet more gravel to the tarmac.
And Auer lost 6 seconds going off and recovering, so his relatively early pit stop strategy is kind of blown now, because he's lost so much time going off the circuit, and he's losing additional time because he's got dirty tyres, he's got gravel on the tyres, he's probably done some damage or dirt to the floor as well.
Desperately trying to get up the order, isn't he? Following that awful qualifying, so some understeer problems for René Rast.
And I wonder now if that is the effect of the tyres beginning to drop off somewhat. Rast is in the 32s, as is Duval and Wickens and Spengler, who are P1s to 4. Meanwhile,
Mortara is in 31, so too is Timo GLOCK.
Jamie Green, 1 minute 30.3.
Right.
So they're actually catching. The issue Rast has now, he's only 25 seconds ahead of Jamie Green, down in 11th place. That's not enough. If Rast pits now, he's actually out of the points.
Yeah. So René Rast then, Loic Duval right behind him. Then it's Robert Wickens, Bruno Spengler, Eduardo Mortara, and Maro Engel is P6. But none of those 6 drivers, of course, have yet taken their mandatory pit stop. Those that have stopped: GLOCK, WITTMANN, Martin, Rockefeller, Green, Blomqvist, Farfus, De Resta, Paffett, Muller, Auer, and Ekström. We're on board with Timo GLOCK then, whose tyres are most certainly back up to temperature now following the new set that has gone on. We've got 38 minutes of the race remaining, and on the left-hand side of the screen, the green indicator telling you who has been in for their mandatory pit stop and who hasn't.
Must have been a bit of an issue for Tom Blomqvist in this lap, because he actually dropped over 4 seconds in sector 1. So I'm not sure if he's gone wide somewhere along the line. But going back to pit stops, the top 6 still need to jump in. If you think for a moment, you're probably looking at maybe 22 to 25 seconds in the pit lane where you enter, you slow down, you're stationary, and you get back up to speed. So, but you then probably need to add another 4 to 5 seconds on your first outlap, because you have so little grip on those tyres that that's almost how much you're losing.
Sure. Well, we're watching Jamie Green at the moment. Jamie Green is P11, but nominally, of course, P5, given the when you take the pit stops into consideration. René Rast then continuing out there on his original set of tyres then that he started the race with. René Rast, of course, just 1 point behind Mattias Ekström in the Drivers' Championship going into this race. And at the moment, René Rast in a vastly superior position to that of Mattias Ekström. So the difference between René Rast and Timo GLOCK on screen, as you can see. And René Rast, once he's served his, or not served, but gone in for his mandatory pit stop, it's going to be sort of P5, maybe P6 for René Rast. But there is Timo GLOCK. So we're thinking he's going to be out between, potentially between Jamie Green and Augusto Farfus. There is the Jamie Green car. And Mike Rockefeller running just a little bit wide there as well as he exited that turn. Jamie Green, who was showed phenomenal pace in FP2 earlier on today. Bear in mind, he's P4 in the Drivers' Championship as well, Jamie Green, on 87 points. Timo GLOCK still showing a clean pair of heels to Marco WITTMANN at the moment. Those 3 BMWs there with Timo GLOCK heading that trio.
And a bit of a lock-up there for GLOCK as it came into turn 1. You don't want to do that too often, because you lock up, you could damage the tyres, flat spot them, and that makes it a very difficult drive for the rest of the race. But they're still together. They're still together. They're very close. You've got a GLOCK there, P7 at the moment, although that'll probably revert to P1 when everyone ahead of the pits.
Yes.
But WITTMANN's only just behind him. Then it's a second to Martin, and then just over 2 seconds to Rocky. So that top group only separated by it's like 4 seconds, as you see them all on picture there. This is going to be a close fight to the win as the laps turn down. We've got 35 minutes still to go in this race.
We
Dave.
have.
And I think we are going to see, by when we get into the last 10 minutes or so, we may see some very tired tyres.
Well, and this is probably what René Rast is banking on, isn't it? Because he's out there and he's trying to keep out there for as long as he can. That will give him the freshest rubber for the end of the race. So is he going to dive in? No chance. It's Rast, Duval, and Robert Wickens then all across the timing line now. And Loic Duval, at the moment, is able to take nothing to René Rast. There is the BMW bank car of Bruno Spengler, who, as I mentioned in the start of the show, celebrates his 150th start in DTM, being chased down by Eduardo Mortara. Eduardo Mortara going from Audi to Mercedes-Benz for the 2017 campaign, and Jamie Green getting very much closer to Mike Rockefeller now.
What they're going to be looking at for René Rast is Rasta's a 27-second gap ahead of Farfus. That's effectively what they're going to be looking at, because they want to get out ahead of Farfus if they possibly can, because that was the guy he was having a battle with earlier in the race. Sure. That was the guy who was holding him up, but just behind Farfus. Farfus still isn't having amazing pace. He's got De Resta on his wing. He's got Paffett just behind him. He's got Nico Muller just behind him. So if you get it wrong, if you get your timing apps just a little bit wrong, you don't get out ahead of Farfus. You actually end up 4 positions back.
Yes.
That's the gap that Audi are going to be looking at for René Rast in this race.
So there is René Rast. There's Loic Duval then. Bear in mind, Loic Duval has got that 5 seconds going to be added to his pit stop time for the penalty that was awarded earlier for that jump start. And Jamie Green continuing to chase down Mike Rockenfeller. Of course, Jamie Green has DRS available to him, but whether you have DRS available to you or not, it still doesn't make overtaking here at Zandvoort any easier necessarily.
Absolutely not. One of the things we're noticing is all the guys who've stopped at the moment, they're setting relatively decent pace. They're all generally in around the mid-31s. But the guys who've stayed out, their pace is actually stabilised.
Forgive me, here comes Timo GLOCK. Now, he's going to have the car of Maro Engel ahead of him, and this is going to play into the hands, potentially, of Marco Wittmann. Marco Wittmann, the current champion there, you can see, is ever closer to Timo GLOCK now. Why? Well, because they have the Mercedes-Benz of Maro Engel ahead of them, and you can see Marco Wittmann all over the back of the Timo GLOCK car, just seeing if there's an opportunity for him. So, Maro Engel, you will recall, in Moscow, Nico Muller, it was argued, was hanging on to his position and therefore backing other drivers up. Now, is he doing the same job here? Who is he going to advantage from Mercedes-Benz? It's going to be Paul De Resta, isn't it?
Yes, I think De Resta would get a good shout, because that's a guy who's in the group that Rast will come out ahead of, as we see Engel. Now, bear in mind, Engel's part in this game, he actually has already been off once in this race, which has actually dropped him officially 10 seconds down the road, but I think he seems to be almost letting the 2 BMWs by.
Well, in fairness, GLOCK and Wittmann have got by, and here comes Maxime Martin now. So, yes, you're right. I mean, Maro Engel, his excursion into the gravel that we saw earlier on has hampered what progress he could make in this race. And remember, he's a race winner, having taken his maiden DTM victory at the Moscow Raceway as they round the final turn once again and head for the timing line. There is Timo GLOCK. So
here's Martin coming around the outside, and
a lock up.
And
now Maxime Martin gets underneath the Maro Engel car. And he's got the job done. And Mike Rockenfeller is going to have a go as well. And Maro Engel is being mugged here, isn't he? Because Jamie Green is coming through as well.
He's got no pace. Engel's got absolutely no pace whatsoever. He's really struggling for grip around parts of the circuit as him and Rocky go side by side, and very close too as they come around the... Rocky really had to take the curbs there.
It is a roller coaster here at Zandvoort, and you were on the ride then just for a moment as Maro Engel sticks his elbows out and tries to deny Mike Rockenfeller coming through. Jamie Green is waiting to pounce as well. So this has allowed Maxime Martin, Marco Wittmann and Timo GLOCK to get up the road. And now, all of a sudden, the car's being held up potentially by Maro Engel. It's Mike Rockenfeller and Jamie Green. 30 minutes remain in the race. Through the chicane, the cars go. And Maro Engel, once again, sticks his elbows out. And Mike Rockenfeller actually not close enough to be able to try and do anything in any event. And that allows Jamie Green to get ever closer. So the DRS laps that are available to the drivers, you can see in yellow on the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen. Here comes GLOCK then into turn 1. And here comes Mike Rockenfeller up the inside of Maro Engel, or is he? Well, Maro Engel is able to shut the door. There was a look at the inside then from Mike Rockenfeller, but he wasn't able to convert that look into an overtake.
Rocky needs to do this quickly. Martin, Wittmann and GLOCK are getting away far too quickly. They've lost 2 seconds on that last lap already. He needs to do the job, get the job done quickly so he can get back in that battle. Otherwise, he's just going to fall way behind that trio.
Easy for us to say, less easy for them to actually do it.
Going back to strategy, I think Audi are now at the point where they're probably making a mistake. I think the gap down to Nico Müller, who's currently 15th, but will prop back up to maybe 10th. The gap is now 26.6 seconds. I don't think yet that's enough for Ross to actually to make a pit stop, get out, hold the tyres for a lap, and actually be so far up the grid. I think they probably left it too long at this stage. But they're still going around. It's Ross, Duval, Wickens, Spengler, Mortara still yet to pit, and Engel on screen, as we can see, also yet to pit.
And Mike Rockenfeller then all over the back panel of Maro Engel, and now Jamie Green is involved in that as well, because he's as close to Mike Rockenfeller as he has been. He runs just a little bit wide and kicks up a little dust as well, does Jamie Green. Grip is difficult here, and in comes Maro Engel, and that releases Mike Rockenfeller and Jamie Green, who can chase up the road now, potentially, if they've got the pace, to Maxime Martin.
And I think they needed to do that, Dave, because Engel was really struggling to get traction out of the slower corners.
Replay of the start sequence then, and Timo GLOCK then.
Now, if we watch Farfus as he come into turn 2, he gets the initial bog getaway, and he actually kind of boxes in both Wittmann and Martin. This is where Wittmann makes the move coming around the outside, and eventually later on in the lap, Martin also gets by.
Wittmann was just remained absolutely committed to that, didn't he? And it worked for him. This is René Rast that we go on board with now. Maxime Martin streaking up the road there with Marco Wittmann wishing to dive to the inside, but that was denied by the car that was filling that gap that he wanted to turn into.
That was a wonderful blocking move by the BMW. It was actually through turn 1. They actually made a bit of a wall. That's Engel going off. Yeah.
Yes, that was right at the start of the race, and Maro Engel diving through. As in now comes René Rast. René Rast is in. Now this is going to be critical, and it's going to be...
Auer and Eki are out, and you have time to warm up your tires carefully and fight back towards the end.
So the Rosberg team need to work hard here. Only 2 engineers per side. Keep an eye on the clock.
Now the guy they need to look out for is Nico Müller, and
well, there he goes. So it's going to be P10, isn't it, for René Rast? He's on cold tyres now as well. He's going to need a lap. But what he is going to have come the end of the race, bar Wickens, Spengler and Mortara, who are also due to stop, and Loic Duval for that matter as well, what he is going to have, he's going to have the freshest set of tyres come the end of the race.
Absolutely, and what Rast also has right now, he's going to have fresher tyres, as we see a retirement there for Tom Blomqvist. He's not had the best of days in the end, unfortunately. Now, Rast also is going to be on fresh tyres now, so he can set very good laps as soon as his tyres are up to temperature. But he then comes across a wall of cars with Müller, Paffett, De Resta and Farfus all within 2 seconds of each other. It's not as if he may be able to just pick off one car by one. He's going to hit like a big group of cars, and that's where he could lose a little bit of time. But he's got fresher tyres. He can make the moves work.
Well, we say that, but of course he's got to try and make those moves work, and we can see just how difficult it is to get by here on the Zandvoort circuit. One that it's cost a lot of points potentially for is Lucas Auer. Lucas Auer really mired down there, and of course going into this he was P3 in the points on 99, playing 112 and 113. As Lucas Auer seeing perhaps his championship charge taken away from him. Although one thing we've learned about DTM this year is we see what happens during race 1, and that doesn't give us a form guide for race number 2.
Absolutely not. It was embellished somewhat by Auer having an off earlier on in the race as well. As did Mattias Ekström, who had 2 offs right after his pit stop on lap 4 of the race, and that's just dropped the championship leader, of course. This is one thing where Rast may actually take a little bit of benefit, even if he doesn't score a huge amount of points. As he'll probably, if it stays as it is, he'll probably overtake Eki in the championship.
Yes.
But with 24.5 minutes plus 1 lap still to go, I think we're still going to see some changes. And I foresee that people who stopped early may begin to struggle in the last 10 minutes or so. We'll see how that comes about.
Yes, we will. There is the Nico Müller car then. Nico Müller down there is currently P12, but it's going to be P9, of course, once all the pit stops are done. That group being chased down by René Rast, who's returned following his pit stop through the chicane. Now, bear in mind that Nico Müller is driving an Audi. René Rast is driving an Audi. Therefore, Nico Müller is not going to be too difficult in terms of his defence against René Rast. But then he's got Paffett, De Resta, Farfus ahead.
Absolutely. You know, I think it's going to be quite a bit easier for Rast. He's pulled in over a second on this lap alone, and as he comes across the start-finish line, Rast is like 1.3 seconds faster on that last lap alone. So you're right. Müller will make it easier on Rast. The key, though, for both of them is getting the chance to overtake in the right place, because you don't want to get caught behind your teammate or the person who's going to let you by in this twisty section of the circuit. I mean, ideally,
because that's going to take time away, isn't it?
Ideally, he'd come behind Müller on the start-finish straight and maybe make a little bit of room. That's when it gets difficult, because then all of a sudden it's Paffett, it's De Resta, they're two Mercedes, and just ahead of them is Farfus in the BMW. So
there's going to be no help in hand from those manufacturers, of course not. But yet he is not on the back of Nico Müller quite, but he is significantly quicker than this group of 4 cars. So it's only going to be a matter of moments before he's on them. We know he's not going to have too much problem getting past Nico Müller, but then the advantage that he will have will be compromised by virtue of the fact it is so difficult to overtake here. And, you know, they're not going to help him in that quest. They're defending race position as well, aren't they? So we watch Mike Rockenfeller chasing down the Maxime Martin car. There is Jamie Green. Timo GLOCK crosses the timing line, as does Marco Wittmann and Maxime Martin.
What's interesting, Dave, is yes, we're actually seeing the peak pace drop off of the tyres very, very quickly. What we are also seeing is once the drivers get into the mid 1 minute 32s or the late 1 minute 32s, so the tyre wear seems to be plateauing somewhat. So yes, they're not actually, once they reach that stage of maybe 10-lap-old tyres, they're not actually just going downhill as we would see in other championships. They're actually reaching a level where the drivers are still able to race reasonably well and put in competitive lap times without necessarily setting purple sectors on the circuit.
So this is what we call the dropping off a cliff in terms of tyre adhesion, and it doesn't happen because the tyres plateau out and are still able to deliver a satisfactory level of grip performance. We have 21.5 minutes still to run. There is Jamie Green. Here comes Augusto Farfus then, ahead of Paul De Resta and Gary Paffett. And now René Rast then is onto the back of Nico Müller. Let's watch this very carefully. It's been Nico Müller that we think will not be too difficult in terms of his defence against René Rast as they run through the chicane.
And as we go into the long Ari Leinbach corner, it's actually a triple apex corner, so it's a long twisting right-hander. If you get a good exit out of this, it'll get a very nice boost coming onto the start-finish straight, and maybe Sir DRS as well.
It's kind of perfect. It's exactly where you suggested that Rast needs it to happen. Nico Müller then does not defend, and Rast goes through on the inside. But now he is going to have a devil of a job. Yes, he's got fresher tyres, but he has got two Mercedes-Benz ahead of him that are not going to be quite as easy to get past.
And importantly, Rast didn't use a DRS to actually make that move, because Müller actually gave him enough room and stepped aside. He may need to start delving into that as he takes the Mercedes and BMW ahead of him.
But critically, the 3 cars ahead of him have got more DRS usages available to them, as you can see from the yellow indicator on the left-hand side of the screen.
And they're all in DRS range thanks to the cars in front as well. The only driver there not be able to use the DRS is Farfus. And actually, Farfus has not used DRS at all in this race because he's not actually been close enough to anyone in this race to be able to make it. And it's
Rast, he's having a real go here, isn't he? Rast is trying to find his way past one of the most experienced drivers in the DTM field. Maxime Martin ran just a bit wide there. That's allowed Mike Rockenfeller to get ever closer. What can Rocky do here? Try and find his way past the Belgian driver in the blue and white BMW ahead of him. It's Maxime Martin. And there we can see them screaming past our camera position there. Crucially, Maxime Martin has got more DRS available to him than Mike Rockenfeller, but Mike, of course, on a quest to try and get past. And now here comes René Rast. Let's go on board with René Rast as he now tries to make short work of the Mercedes-Benz driver ahead of him, as he did with Gary Paffett. Well, René Rast is lining him up. He's putting that Mercedes well into his target sights. Here comes Mike Rockenfeller, potentially on Maxime Martin. Martin, though, sufficiently far ahead of Mike Rockenfeller, and René Rast, I don't think is quite close enough to Paul di Resta. Augusto Farfus is just ahead of them in the orange and white BMW, and René Rast really pushing hard here, and Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich looks on at the race continuing from, bear in mind, this driver, a rookie into his first season as his first full season as a DTM driver. René Rast already P2 in the championship. We expect that to change come the end of the race. And it's a race that has got merely 17 minutes left to run, and René Rast knows that he's got to get the job done. Paul di Resta in car number 3 then is doing everything that he needs to do and just making sure that he very fairly defends against the René Rast car, which is clearly a little bit quicker. This is playing into the hands a little bit of Augusto Farfus, because as Paul di Resta is having to focus on defending against René Rast, Augusto Farfus is able to get up the road. Rast looks to the inside. Going into the chicane, it would have been a duplicate, wouldn't it? A carbon copy of what he did on Gary Paffett, but it wasn't available to him.
The other thing you need to take into account of as well is Rast has made the move on Paffett coming into the chicane. The team have probably got onto di Resta's team radio or maybe notice and just say, oh, as we see Rocky making another move on Martin. They'll notify him somehow. That's how Paffett. That's where Paffett lost the place. Rast, I mean, he's got to try and use Farfus as well.
But Paffett is coming back at him now because, of course, Rast is being held up by Paul di Resta. The Mercedes appear to have the power benefit perhaps on the straights, but through the twisty-turny sections, of which there are enough of them here at Zandvoort, that's where René Rast has got to make his overtake. As I mentioned earlier, Paul di Resta, he's on 9 DRS laps, whereas René Rast is only on 6. And Paul di Resta, of course, with Augusto Farfus ahead of him and Mike Rockenfeller continuing to try and find his way past Maxime Martin. And Jamie Green is just getting closer and closer as well, as Maxime Martin then continues to deny Mike Rockenfeller the opportunity to come past, but defending absolutely fairly, and Mike got to try and find a way through, and at the moment that has not been possible. There you can see Jamie Green now. It's noticeable, isn't it, that he's getting closer.
The theoretical top 5 all there in one shot once Duval and Spengler finally make their pit stops. The key to Dave in this is making a move is to actually start at almost 2 or 3 corners beforehand.
Sure.
To get a good run on the straight, you need to actually really start at coming out of the chicane up the on the previous lap.
Martin went wide there, made a bit of a mistake, allowed Mike Rockenfeller to get ever closer to him, but he's able to recover from that. He carried too much speed in there. He didn't quite lock up, but the car ran wide, and that just allowed Mike Rockenfeller a sniff at the inside of Maxime Martin, but that's all it was. It wasn't enough. But what Mike will be hoping for is more mistakes like that from Maxime Martin.
Absolutely, as Martin is losing maybe a little bit of concentration as he fights off Rocky in his mirrors. But interestingly enough, I mean, Glock is not getting away. WITTMANN is not getting away.
No, you're right.
And I was wondering maybe a while ago, would BMW try and bring Martin more into contention for the win, because he is the leading BMW driver in the championship at the moment. It's a bit touch and go.
I wouldn't have said so, because I don't think he's got the pace to be able to do it. That's the truth.
Well, that's the other thing. I think the risk about it is that Glock and WITTMANN don't want to lose additional positions either, because you have Rocky and Green right there to pounce if you get it wrong.
On board with Mattias Ekström then, who's had a torrid time of it, and both he and the car ahead of him, Lucas Auer, are the 2 big losers in terms of the points haul in this particular race. So Lucas Auer in the number 22 Mercedes-Benz, and here comes Mattias Ekström taking a look at him now. Through the chicane they go, and in at last comes Loic Duval in the number 77 car. Now bear in mind, he has a 5-second addition to his time. So he is going to fall way back. And René Rast still in this Mercedes sandwich at the moment, has not been able to find a way past the Paul di Resta car ahead. Augusto Farfus not getting away, and you make the point that nor are the others ahead, are they?
Rast is losing his advantage. He's losing his fresh tyre advantage pretty quickly at this rate. He's stuck in traffic, therefore he's getting the dirty air from the cars in front. He's losing a little bit of front end grip, and that's causing additional wear, and it's causing additional understeer. And the more he's stuck in that gaggle of cars, the more his tyres are going to wear, and his opportunity to get positions in this race will ebb away.
Well, we're on board now, looking back at the Gary Pavic car where we were as we go on board inside the car of René Rast now, who's continuing to chase down Paul di Resta, but really hasn't been able to harry the Mercedes-Benz ahead. Augusto Farfus ahead of them all in the BMW. So the only one yet to pit is Bruno Spengler.
And interestingly, that pit stop from Duval actually brings Rast into 9th place, which for today, if it stays like this, would give Rast the a 1-point lead in the DTM Championship.
So there is Mike Rockenfeller. The only car that we've lost is that of Tom Blomqvist, the British BMW driver, who's out of the race. Everyone else still out there and fighting for everything that they can get, and none are fighting harder than this man, as we're on board with him now. René Rast with the Mercedes-Benz of Paul di Resta ahead, hugs the curb and then back on full throttle again in his quest to try and get on terms with the Mercedes-Benz ahead. But here's Mattias Ekström then on Lucas Auer in replay, and both of those drivers really ruining their chances in this race, where they have lost a big bucket full of points potentially.
As a not real defence there from Auer, was there, as we see Rocky try have a look down the inside of Maxime Martin again. Yeah, Auer really very much left the door open in that stage, and you know, Eki just going through for a lowly 15th, it must be said.
You're absolutely right.
We see effectively it's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, but the really 1st to 5th, Spengler still leading this race, although he has to do his mandatory pit stop. But they're 7.5 seconds behind Spengler, so they're not actually being blocked in any way, shape or form by the BMW driver, but they're still grouped very, very, very closely together. Actually, Spengler has just dived into the pits now, so Glock retakes the lead. And Glock pitted on lap 8, and the guys just behind the WITTMANN and Martin pitted on lap 7. Their tyres are holding up pretty well as Spengler, and we are now, this is the 30th lap of the race. So he's going to drop down to about 14th place, as 13th, 14th place. Yeah, as we see, Duval has just gone by. Not the 150th race, DTM race that Spengler may have wanted.
No. And he will fall prey now to Mattias Ekström, who of course is on tyres that are warm, whereas Bruno Spengler returning on those cold tyres, the sparks being thrown off the front of his BMW. So Rocky then continuing to chase down Maxime Martin for the final podium place. At the moment, if it stays the way it is, it's Glock, WITTMANN and Martin that are going to be on the podium. Here comes Mattias Ekström on Bruno Spengler then. Bruno Spengler returning from his mandatory pit stop. His tyres are relatively cold in comparison to Mattias Ekström, who pitted much earlier and therefore whose tyres are up to operating temperature. But here at Zandvoort, Bruno Spengler, if he can stick his elbows out and make that BMW as wide as possible, can potentially deny Mattias Ekström the opportunity to come by. Mattias Ekström, who he, of course, has lost out by finding just how those cold tyres were not going to offer the grip through turn number 1 as he went high and wide through the gravel, eventually being able to bring his car back out again, and Mike Rockenfeller trying to go around the outside of Maxime Martin and not finding a way past.
And Rocky now only has 1 DRS left. He used his second last DRS there to try and make another move on Martin. It hadn't come off. Rast, meanwhile, in 8th place, still chasing, pressing Di Resta. He's only got 2 DRS laps left.
So Mike Rockenfeller then, as you've correctly said, if you look at the yellow panel on the left-hand side of the screen, just 1 DRS lap available left to Mike Rockenfeller. And in his first use of it, he has not been able to find a way past Maxime Martin. Proven to be very difficult indeed. But the point that Lee made earlier on is the fact that neither Glock nor WITTMANN are escaping up the road here. They're all still within just a few of each other, and Jamie Green now getting ever closer to the back end of Mike Rockenfeller. And of course, Jamie Green's going to have many more DRS uses made available to him than Mike Rockenfeller, as Mike cheekily takes a look at the inside to try and unsettle Maxime Martin. But the Belgian was not for unsettling at that point.
And Rocky, in a sense, it won't be the worst result in the world. He's had a so-so season. He's currently sitting 6th in the championship. The guys ahead of him, Glock, has not really been a feature in the title race this year. WITTMANN not really a feature in the title race this year. Martin, he's 5th in the title, but he's quite a lot of points behind the lead, as Rocky is now completely out of DRS.
Well, Jamie Green
26 points behind championship leader Eki. So bringing Green up to 4th place, giving him 12 points would be as Eki championship leader pits, would be a good shout. The switch has been made. Auer, of course, not scoring either. Rast is only going to get 4 points for 8th place as it stays as it is. So this will bring Green back into the standings to quite a degree.
So there is Timo Glock, Marco WITTMANN and Maxime Martin. And now, just wonder whether Jamie Green will feel that there's an opportunity for a podium here, potentially. So there, Mike Rockenfeller breaks where we don't often see him break there. And all we didn't see was the arm out of the window saying, come on through, really.
What are you suggesting, Dave? What are you suggesting?
Not at all, not at all. Say what you see, Dave, say what you see.
Rast out of DRS now as well. His chase of DRS it's going to be very, very difficult from here on in, with only 5 minutes plus 1 lap to go. Wondering now, well, this with Paffett is just behind Rast. Paffett is only 3/10 behind Rast.
Paffett could have him back, couldn't he?
Paffett could very much have him back. And Rocky actually beginning to fall back behind the leading quartet now that he's been passed by Green. And I just wonder if Green will be thinking Rocky could have or should have maybe let me through a little bit earlier to have a go at Martin, to really go, because as we see Gary Paffett catching right up to the back of René Rast. As I mentioned a few moments ago, he's gunning for that top 8 position, but I feel Green might be considering that Rocky had been chasing Martin for quite a long time. Possibly he should have been let through earlier on to have a go. We'll see if Green can actually make any good of this.
I don't agree with you, actually, but we will see. You may well be right. But what Jamie Green, of course, wants to do is find himself on the podium, and that is a possibility. René Rast then may fall prey to Gary Paffett now, and Green not close enough to Maxime Martin to be able to do any good on this. And we're running out of time, aren't we? Just over 3.5 minutes left. But now Green does close around turn number 1.
He's a DRS coming into the first corner there.
Watch Gary Paffett on René Rast. There is our race leader, Timo Glock. Marco WITTMANN, P2. Maxime Martin, P3. Then it is Jamie Green and Mike Rockenfeller. All 5 have broken away a bit from Augusto Farfus, Paul Di Resta and René Rast, who we feel may just come under attack from Gary Paffett as he tries to retake that place. Now, Jamie Green, for my money, is a little bit closer to Maxime Martin now, and all of a sudden Mike Rockenfeller is able to just take advantage of the hole that Jamie Green is being able to push into the air wall. Runs a bit wide there as he got very close to Maxime Martin. Running out of time, though, Lee.
Green needs to do it now. He needs to do it as soon as possible. He can't hang around and keep trying lap after lap, as Rocky was doing, because it was effectively almost wasting time. He needs to get it done quickly. So he needs to actually maintain a decent gap coming through this final set of right-hand turns. The kind of triple corner Ari Leindijk corner. And I think he's dropping back. He's losing too much time. Going through the latter part of that corner, and it's giving Martin just enough of a gap to actually pull away.
Just wonder whether Timo GLOCK is going to be under a little bit of pressure from Marco Wittmann heading towards the checkered flag.
It would be sneaky.
Well, they're P7 and P8 in the championship, and here's Paffett on René Rast then. So Paffett does get that place back, goes past René Rast. So Nico Müller is going to have to back these other cars up now, isn't he, to almost protect René Rast ahead of him.
And that dropping Rast down to 9th place would mean Rast's lead is over Ecke would only be a single point. It's actually a mistake.
He made
Rast
a mistake, didn't
going
he?
into turn 1 and actually opened the door very wide for Paffett to actually allow him to get through a couple of corners later.
Gary didn't need the invitation twice, did he? And I reckon that mistake come about because of the pressure that he was under from Gary Paffett. So Nico Müller now will act as rear guardsman then for René Rast, as
Müller has no grip. So Mortara has absolutely no grip whatsoever. He is slipping and sliding all over the circuit and is really struggling with traction as Wickens is on his rear wing. But any opportunity Mortara had to put pressure on Müller is kind of, look, yeah, he's got absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing as Wickens just goes by.
So there is the René Rast car then. We've been watching the Dodgems behind, haven't we?
We got 5 guys.
5 in a row. Look at this. Timo GLOCK.
Okay, Mattias, please go to wait and take the memory stick. Go to DMSD wait.
Ecke's pitted, and I think that's the end of the race for him. What they're talking about, the memory stick, is basically the information in the car.
Data.
Yeah, the data, which is aligned to the onboard cameras, etc. So you can actually match the data to the onboard footage that you're watching with all the telemetry.
Right. Here are the top 5 then. GLOCK, Wittmann, Martin, Green, Rockenfeller. And Timo GLOCK then.
And interesting is GLOCK's still there with his 11 DRS is because for the most part in this race he's not actually been behind anyone.
No.
Actually, even when the pit stops cycles were going on, he was far enough behind the non-pitted drivers to not actually have to use his DRS. But Wittmann, Martin, Green, they all have the option. But GLOCK's just in clear air, just seems to have enough pace, just enough pace to keep them behind. He's not losing speed, he's not losing grip through the slower corners. He's got decent traction. As you see, Paffett is now with DRS as well in 8th place, having done the deed on Rast a few minutes ago. Green, the time has gone down, so we've got one more lap after this. So if anything's going to be done, it's got to be now.
So final lap then starts. Timo GLOCK leading from Marco Wittmann and then Maxime Martin. Here comes Jamie Green then on Maxime Martin. Can he find whatever is necessary to try and wrestle away that final podium place and give Audi at least some pride up there on the podium? Because at the moment it is a BMW fest with GLOCK, Wittmann and Martin P1, 2 and 3. Jamie Green in P4. Is it all just a little bit too late? The point you made earlier about should Mike Rockenfeller have allowed Jamie Green to go through earlier, I never really thought he was in a position to be able to do that. I don't think Jamie Green had actually got the pace to be close enough at that point.
Possibly. It's all written in stone now.
Yeah.
Green hasn't been able to make a move on Martin. He's not. I don't think, unless Martin makes a mistake, there's not going to be an opportunity in this race.
He did a moment ago. It's not beyond the realms of possibility.
But good race for BMW, but also for RMG as well, who
perhaps here Mike Rockenfeller will get past Jamie Green. Perhaps the deal was we'll let you get past and have a go at Maxime Martin, but if you're not able to do it, Mike needs to come back past. Well, at the moment, it doesn't look like Jamie Green is playing that game.
Green needs to slow down because he's actually too close to the guys in front to actually make it work.
Yeah. Oh, and look at that.
There
Here comes Mike Rockenfeller. So P1 to Timo GLOCK, Marco Wittmann P2, P3 Maxime Martin.
Well done. P1. As usual, fuel saving, take the pickup.
Well, as we remember a little move with
Thanks guys for the good pit stop.
Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas.
I was scaring myself with the front right tire because I had this massive lock up into turn 1 twice, and the front left didn't feel that great as well, so I had to manage the tires and work well. So thanks a lot, thanks to the team and to BMW and everyone, and happy to get a little trophy back home to my little son and my family. Thank you, Olaf. Thank you, Benny.
And that was a small novel from Timo GLOCK on the team radio, but well done to Timo GLOCK. And, yep, Mike Rockenfeller then was awarded the place back again then, wasn't he? And came through on the last turn over Jamie Green. So the winner then is Timo GLOCK. And Jens Marquardt from BMW must be a happy man. 1, 2, 3, Verena.
Oh, I'm sure he's absolutely happy. Congratulations, what a fantastic job. Timo GLOCK won. You've got 3 BMWs in the top 3. You've got to be absolutely happy.
Yes, it was a nail-biting race all the way through, I have to say. And you could see there is a lot of things and were a lot of things happening. And I have to see really big compliments to my guys. They did a fantastic job. They had great starts and they were really doing everything in the right way, pushing when it was necessary, making sure that the tires were managed in the right way, which was difficult really today. And we could see, yeah, stopping early could be also a risk. And yeah, we had an issue with Tom and fantastic result, and also Augusto in 6th, I think. So very good points and congratulations. Tight race all the way through. So really great result for us today.
So very happy BMW boss. Thank you very much, Jens Marquardt, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Verena. Just as ecstatic as we thought he would be. There is Timo GLOCK, then the race winner, Marco Wittmann P2 and Maxime Martin P3. That's a fantastic heli shot of this Zandvoort circuit. Then confirmation of the result, then GLOCK, Wittmann, Martin, followed by Mike Rockenfeller, Jamie Green, P4, P5. Then it was Augusto Farfus, Paul di Resta, Gary Paffett, René Rast, P9, Nico Muller, P10. Then it was Wickens, Mortara, Loic Duval, Bruno Spengler, Lucas Auer, Maro Engel, and we lost Mattias Ekström towards the end of the race, and Tom Blomqvist earlier on in the race. So that's the way it is.
And just a note there, Dave, top 12, ended in the end, we're only covered by 7.9 seconds. There's a lot of pace managing in that race, which contributed to a very tight field. And as we see, René Rast has taken the lead in the race, 1 point ahead of Ekström. Neither Ekström or Auer scored in that race. GLOCK suddenly 4th in championship. Green 97 points as 5th. And Martin's 6th in the championship standings with 93.
Which is great for us. All of a sudden, you know, curveball like today has been thrown in, and it all started truthfully during qualifying, didn't it?
It did, absolutely. Put a lot of drivers out of position and forcing them onto, you know, non-linear strategy, shall we say. And we saw Eki, because they're having to take risks, you know, pitting at times they would not normally have pitted at, and they ended up making mistakes in the rush to try and get up further up the field. GLOCK having a little bit of trouble getting out of his car.
And there he is. He's having no trouble now as he celebrates. Door back on and congratulated straight away by Marco Wittmann.
I think the two teammates there, they played a very, very canny race. And remembering, of course, that they are part of Team RMG. It is a 1-2 for the group.
What's he doing with the #1 board? He didn't want it in the photo. Oh, yes, he did. Look, he positioned it so that the shot was going to be perfect.
It's not vanity at all.
No, none at all. Oh, brilliant stuff.
A 1-2-3 for BMW. And Jens Marquardt said before the race that they were lucky with qualifying with the rain when it came.
So then the 1 point changes between René Rast and Mattias Ekström, goes the other way now. So René Rast is leading by a point over Mattias Ekström. Then it's Lucas Auer on 99, Timo GLOCK into the mix now on 98, and Jamie Green on 97 points. So there are 8 potential people that could win the championship.
It's great, isn't it?
That's fantastic. That's exactly what we want. And here, René Rast then, well, P9 is not what he expected or would have liked, but he did everything he could out there on track in what were, you know, there were challenging conditions at times.
I maintain, though, that they made a mistake. They left him out for 2 or 3 laps too long, because I think they missed a point where they could have actually got him out ahead of Farfus, and that would have been P6, Dave.
Yeah, fair point. So the drivers will be ushered off up towards the podium then. And, of course, we have another race to come at Zandvoort tomorrow from DTM as Maxime Martin makes his way. And, well, we've seen 1, 2, 3 BMW on the podium today. No guarantee that that's going to be what we see tomorrow, and that's the great thing about DTM. So, Marco Wittmann then, P2 for him with Verena.
Yes, Marco, congratulations. A fantastic race. You fought really hard from 3rd place to 2nd place. And also you're back in the music again, considering the championship. So how does it feel?
Yeah, as I said already a few races before, we never give up. We're always fighting, and the championship is, I think, still open. So we worked quite a lot the past weeks, and we clearly can see the tendency goes upwards. And yeah, really happy. We had a good qualifying, a great result for BMW. Locked out the podium. Timo did a great job today in quali and race, so yeah, really happy.
Right, congratulations, thank you very much, and off you go onto the podium and back to you.
Thanks very much, Verena. Well done. Getting hold of Marco Wittmann, P2 for him. Back in the championship hunt potentially as the drivers make their way up towards the podium area then, and everyone below ready to applaud them in the really rather windswept Zandvoort circuit. It's been much more Nürburgring-like in terms of weather conditions, hasn't it, in terms of throwing out surprises. We've had very heavy rain, we've had glorious sunshine, and the one constant has been the wind, really, as Timo GLOCK makes his way to the top step of the podium, followed by Marco Wittmann and Maxime Martin. They're all out there on the podium now, and it will be the national anthem that will play out for one Mr. T. GLOCK. The anthem plays out then for Timo GLOCK on the top step of the podium. Trophy presentation about to be got underway. Mr. Christian Danner is here. Haven't seen Christian in the paddock. He makes that trophy presentation. Never see Christian Danner without a smile on his face, do you?
Lovely guy, absolutely lovely guy. And some hairy stories to tell from the 80s, I tell you that.
So he makes the trophy presentation. Next, Prince Bernhard van Ron makes the trophy presentation then to the team, and Mr. Reinhold pretty happy with that.
And the Prince is racing again this weekend, isn't he?
Indeed so. Indeed so, in the Audi Sport TT Cup. And Axel Verstorn then, the Senior Vice President of Deutsche Post, making a trophy presentation.
I'll tell you, Wittmann doesn't look overly delighted with that. I think he was hoping to maybe gun for the win, but still a good result all the same.
Xing Wan Hong then making the trophy presentation to Maxime Martin. But going back to what you were saying about Marco Wittmann, he very rarely shows emotion, does he?
Yeah, he's a very
customer.
Stoic individual. He's achieved a lot in DTM, and I think he's a
two-time champion.
He's a young man who's looking to achieve an awful lot more.
You certainly wouldn't bet against that happening, would you? So they all pose for the photographs.
And let's just watch them all run.
It's like they'd planned it. Now, when she agreed to take this gig on Wednesday, never did she think she was going to get absolutely covered in champagne, did she? Don't worry about giving a towel to the drivers. Poor grid girls.
That's horrible stuff because it sticks to you.
Sadly, my success in racing means that I don't know. Sadly. Dear, oh dear.
Yeah, and given the drivers giving the bottles down to the rest of the BMW engineers just below the podium there. Plenty of champagne to go around, considering it was a trio of BMW on the podium today.
Absolutely. Okay, super replays here of the top three. Maxime Martin then takes P3. And P2, Marco Wittmann. Maxime Martin, though, P3, as I mentioned, with Verena now.
Maxime, I want to see a smile in your face now. You did a fantastic job from 4th place to 3rd place, and you were defending really, really hard. I mean, Rocky as well as Green, they were just all over you, and you managed, so you've got to be really happy with the 3rd place.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was a really tough race. We beat it quite early, and then, yeah, the Audis were a bit quicker at the end, so I really had to defend. But it was a fair race, fair fight, so it was really nice. And, I think for BMW, it's perfect. 1, 2, 3, it's great, and yeah, it's my 2nd time on podium here in Zandvoort, so really happy.
And tomorrow we've got another race, so maybe we can repeat that.
Tomorrow we try to win. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maxime. Now that's an answer. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much. Tomorrow we try and win. Well, Timo GLOCK did win and sprays the champagne with gusto, it has to be said. One poor trophy girl with the recipient for the most of it, it has to be said, but there we are. There you can see. Oh, it was Maxime Martin, probably more than Timo. He was taking right aim, wasn't he? And look at her. Absolutely covered, poor thing. I'd have never done that had I ever won a race. Bit of a debrief going on here. Look, Nico Muller and Mattias Ekström and all of them in there.
Eki did have a horrible time out there today.
Yeah.
It's stemming really from qualifying.
Well, that brief going on, but no brief for Timo GLOCK. He won the race and he's with Verena.
And he's got to be absolutely raving. You did a fantastic job from pole to victory. It's got to be said, it almost looked like a smooth ride. You all the way up there in the front. And also you now 98 points. That means you're 4th in the total when you're looking at the championship. So from here, everything is possible. How's it feel?
Oh, it feels good. I mean, but it looked easy, but it wasn't. I mean, you know, when I got the sign for the pit stop, I said, okay, that's going to be a long race, especially for the front left tire, and I just tried to keep it aligned. Unfortunately, I had a massive lock-up into turn 1 on the front right, which gave me a lot of vibrations, and then I had to really slow down a bit in the high-speed stuff to take it easy, but you know, I just managed it, but I was scared, I have to say, because it's the sound what came out of that front left tire in turn 7, and even in the last corner, I was like sort of very scared that the tire would survive, and we saw a lot of tire blow-ups yesterday already, like 2 or 3, and we saw problems, so I just tried to manage the gap a bit and play it safe.
Let's see what tomorrow brings, right?
Yeah, we need to see. I mean, tomorrow is a new day, and we try to do the best again.
I'm sure you will. Thank you very much, Timo GLOCK, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Verena. As you say, it's a completely new day tomorrow. This was just one of Mattias Ekström's excursions. It was a full spin. Earlier than that, through turn 1, he'd been off, and the gravel that he laid down on the track actually caused his own demise.
And then, of course, when he went off the second time, he's actually dug up some proper dirt and spread that over the exit of turn 3 and into 4 as well. That was yeah, he really did have that was the race you don't want to have.
Yeah. Well, the crowds have been treated to an extraordinary race in so many ways, and as I say, it was the race really that was decided, in my opinion, through qualifying earlier on today. That was when everything was really shaped, and it was the rain coming down in the qualifying session that was perhaps took manufacturers and teams by surprise, and the wind has been fairly constant throughout the course of the day here, and another day tomorrow, another race tomorrow. Who knows what that will bring us in the dunes? Here's Verena.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, who knows what tomorrow brings? Well, one thing is for sure. The DTM 2017 is as exciting as never before. We've got 8 drivers within 29 points fighting for the championship. So from here on, anything is possible. And I'm very much looking forward to tomorrow. I'm sure the race tomorrow is going to be just as exciting. So hopefully you'll join us then as well. So that's it from Zandvoort. Thank you for joining us. Here are the highlights. Do enjoy. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.